Hello, and welcome to The Kosh. I'm your host, Timber Smith, and The Kosh is a podcast that spotlights people who've had an association with Oshkosh or the surrounding Fox Cities area. Good morning, Kosh listeners. How are you doing? Let me give my normal beginning of podcast reports. It is an amazingly sunny day today, which actually has me excited. Because God knows this has been a dreary winter. And I think it's going to make for great energy in today's episode. Once again, I think you know what I'm going to say. I don't know why I get these amazing guests, but yet I do. I get fire guests, and I get super excited about them. And today's guest I'm really excited about because you know what? I've had conversations with them, and they're usually fire. So let today's episode be no different than that. So without further ado, today's guest is Patti Heffernan. Did I get that right?
You did.
Yes. I'm not going to lie. I've got a reputation of slaughtering names, but I've been on a streak.
Irish names are, so hard to pronounce, though.
Is that what it is? I wouldn't have known it was Irish.
Yeah, it is. Funny fact, that's my married name, and my husband loves to tell a story about how he had a middle school principal who would let kids with Irish last names go home early on St. Patrick's Day.
Bruh. What?
Yeah, and he did not believe him that his last name was Irish. He didn't believe that Heffernan was an Irish last name, and my husband went and got his family crest, and he brought his lineage. He did this whole thing so he could get out early on St. Patrick's Day, and he never let him.
They still didn't let him.
Still didn't let him.
Wow, that seems wrong.
I'm gonna agree.
But I kind of like the idea.
I like the idea that he put some effort into stuff because school was not his strong suit, but he really did his homework on that.
On that one. Well, that's because he was going to get out early. And I mean, I want to know who that educator was because that actually seems kind of cool.
He probably could tell you. I don't remember the name.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Patti, you ready to jump in?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about me and where I come from. So my name's Patti Heffernan. I have a training consulting and technical assistance business for substance use recovery oriented systems of care. We've consulted on federal, state, and local legislation. We were part of the efforts to make sure that the opioid settlement dollars went back to the counties that were on the lawsuit so that they could use those funds the way the community needs. We also have a new nonprofit direct service wraparound support program for people with a specific lived experience of having been through child welfare and substance use recovery, along with some overlap there with domestic violence. And these are all coaches who have this specific lived experience because this is a gap in the communities that I've seen. Even within the recovery community, there's not a lot of understanding of what that can be like. So that's our business. And as far as me, I went into the foster system when I was 11, and I bounced around a lot. I think in 6th grade I was at 3 different homes.
Bruh.
And then ended up enduring a lot of the abuse that you can endure in foster care. Abuses that I didn't suffer in my own home. So it just added to the portfolio of trauma, if you will. And then after, being in the system for about 4 years, I was reunified with my mom. And it took about 4 months for me to get into some serious trouble as a juvenile and enter into the juvenile justice system.
Bruh.
And yeah.
Nothing easy about that one.
No, there's not. Especially since at the time, man, I had zero intention of reforming in any kind of way. I was going to self-destruct, and I was going to take the world down with me as much as I possibly could, man. I was just mad. And I just kept getting chance after chance after chance. And it wasn't until about the 6th or 7th chance that I finally was going, okay, so it looks like nobody's going to take care of me but me. I might need to do a little bit better job of that.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, if I stop doing illegal things and drugs, they'll stop arresting me. So maybe it could be. I could try. So, but then the struggles didn't end there, because when you get cut off, even when those supports are there and they're being used appropriately, and the individual is really trying and going through, figuring out how to transition into adulthood, and those supports get withdrawn, and you're just kind of dropped on your head, and it's figure it out, right?
Right. That seems like I would think that's like one of those. It's one of the scariest things I hear about foster care is like the aging out part. Like when you get to the end and it's like, there's not a great system in place to help these. Well, they're really still kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons for the high rate of foster care to human trafficking, foster care to prison. Those are pretty common things that happen in there. So I spent quite a bit of time being homeless and trying to figure things out. I was involved with the 12-step fellowship at the time, and there's a lot of parts of that were really good for me. There were a lot of parts of that was what I wanted. They looked enough like the dysfunctional family I already had that I didn't want anything to do with anymore. But without the drugs, right? So that made it like 100% better, because we all know that, the only thing that makes somebody an unsafe person is using drugs, right? That's it.
Bruh.
Look, I got to say, I know people who've been 30 years abstinence. I wouldn't trust them with my cats. So there's other markers there, but I didn't know that at the time. And there was people who supported me. There were also people who preyed upon me. And a lot of that message is that if there is a problem, you're the problem. So, struggling with this homelessness, not knowing anything about trauma, not knowing anything about PTSD, not knowing that I can even have PTSD, because I'm not a combat veteran, so it was not bad enough. That was a message from like super, super early on, is that it's never bad enough to get any help with it. Right. And then, why I was having such a hard time holding a job, or why, and my belief was not because the expectations of the job were actually quite ridiculous, which when I look back on it, I'm like, I don't know how they kept any employees, honestly. But it wasn't that, that the job was ridiculous. It's that I wasn't trying hard enough. I wasn't good enough. I was failing. And it was just it was a lot. And I ended up getting, more of that like rejection every time. And then, this idea that if you're in recovery, the only kind of love you can have is tough love, which isn't love at all.
Yeah, explain that.
That tough love isn't love at all?
No. I mean, it's a really profound statement, right? And you hear the term tough love all the time, right?
Right.
And
yeah.
but I mean, yeah. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I just want to expand on that a little bit, because
Sure.
I do think it's really profound, and like.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm quite profound today, I
You
guess.
are profound today.
Let me drink some fancy tea on that.
Ooh.
Haha, cheerio. Okay, so tough love isn't love. What I mean by that is, I'm just going to come from the purview of addiction on this. So we know a lot more about addiction now, biologically and medically. We now know that the idea of being once an addict, always an addict is not true, or it doesn't matter what the substance is. That's not true. We can unequivocally prove that that's not true. And what we can also say is that substance use disorder, a person who has a substance use disorder uses substances in response to pain, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical pain. And yes, there's the physical addiction part of that gets wrapped up in that. But there's a common understanding and there's a common belief and practice, even within the recovery community, is that when something hurts bad enough, somebody will stop using. And that's loving them. Letting them hurt is just loving them, or forcing more hurt on them to get to this point of like, if it hurts bad enough, now you'll take care of yourself. Which if somebody is using substances in a response to pain and you inflict more pain upon them, they're going to use more substances. That's what's going to happen. So you're tough loving people to death. That's not love. Love doesn't harm, period. And there's a difference between feeling the emotion of love for somebody and then moving forward in loving action. And sometimes, I really wish that I could take the word, if there's any word I could take out of addiction or anything that comes with it, it would be the word enabling. I hate that word because you're not enabling somebody's use. It's very obvious that this could be the last time you ever talk to that loved one. Like, this could be the last time. And I know that when people are scared, they want to try to move that person to do something less scary. But that could be the very irony of that is what pushes them, right? So especially when I talk to family members and even in myself, I've lost a lot of people over the years, over the last 20 years of being in the recovery community. Actually, as I was driving here in this very neighborhood, I lost somebody here in Oshkosh who was a community pillar. And you got to think about what do you want that last interaction to be with? Like, if this could possibly be the last time you ever see this person, do you want it to be telling them that they're not good enough, telling them everything that they need to do and how they need to be worthy enough to receive these services? Or do you just want them to know that you're there for them, that you love them, and you don't know how to help, and you don't know what they need?
Yes.
So,
bruh,
and I think about that community pillar, right? He was a community pillar in the recovery community. He was a go-to guy, and he had struggled with his own mental health and substances on and off for years and years. And the belief was that this one pathway of recovery is the only way to do your recovery, and there is nothing else. And he fully and totally believed that. And the pain and that humiliation of having to come back and saying that I had a reoccurrence of use, as if that's not part of a recovery process, if that's not part of somebody who reacts to pain by using substances, right? That this was such a shameful thing that he did. He committed suicide rather than face that. And that is not the only story. But this particular person, he was a sponsor of many people. He was a part of the recovery community at the employment level and at the structural level of the way that we do things in the community. And I just have to wonder, if we knew then what we know now, could he still be here?
Right.
And he was an amazing drummer too.
Yeah.
He was an amazing drummer. Yeah. He was an amazing drummer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kids? Family?
Me? Oh yeah, totally. 4 of them. I wasn't going to have any. Remember I said we're Irish? Yeah. My oldest daughter is just about to be 15.
Ooh.
And I have a son who is 12, who is just caught up to her in height. So he now wears the same size shoes as me, which he's just getting big. And then I have twin 8-year-olds who were my smallest babies, but they are my biggest kids. They are both bigger than their brother and sister were at that age.
Oh.
Yeah. And they love basketball.
Uh-oh.
And their dad loves basketball. Yeah, we love coming to see the Herd games down here.
Love the Herd.
So,
we are big Herd fans here.
Yeah. We like getting out there. I'm not always real great in the loud crowds. It's not my I would much rather be running event than attending an event That's how, because when you're running it, you can just be like, oh, I have this thing I have to do, and I can go hide where it's quiet for a minute and then get back out there. You can't do that as much when you're attending the event.
Yeah, when you're just there. Well, when you're there cheering, and hopefully lots of people are cheering around you.
So I don't know a lot about basketball.
Yeah.
So I know that when it goes through the hoop, like that's a time to cheer. But so this is also a funny story. Okay, so I'm 5'10". Okay, and I've been 5'10" since the 8th grade. All right. One summer I just shot up and I was just taller than everybody until they, caught up. Well, and some of them never did. But so people were always like, "You should play basketball. You should play basketball." And so one time I did, and I swear to God, I had no idea what was going on, like the entire time. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know where I was supposed to be. I swore everybody like had these secret meetings where they explained the drills at practice and like they explained the plays because everybody else seemed to know what they were doing. I was like, I went to every practice. I don't know how I missed this. I didn't know anything about it.
Well, if you are a 5'10" young lady and you are fairly young, I think the job is to stand there in the center and just intimidate everyone.
Oh my God. I was a gangly chicken at that time. I didn't know.
No. All right. That's fantastic. All right. You ready to move on to the next segment?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. The next segment is called What in the World is Going On With? This is where you start with the phrase, what in the world is going on? And then you tell us what's on your mind.
So what in the world is going on with Fox City's roller derby?
What?
Bruh.
Break it down. Look, I'm super curious because like roller derby to me is fascinating.
Oh, good. Wait, because we could do this whole podcast on just roller derby. Like we totally could. Because I love roller derby. I totally found a home there. I play roller derby with Fox City's roller derby. I'm Siren, number 33. And we have a bout coming up this coming Saturday, March 11th. Be there, or I will find you. Just kidding.
The fact that you called it a bout says a lot because you didn't say like it's not a game.
It's not a game. It's a bout. Okay. And y'all got to watch out for Just the Hip out there. She can. Ooh, you'll see her hits from way up in the stands. Yeah. Honestly, one of my favorite things is even if I didn't see it happen, I know she hit somebody real hard because you can hear the crowd go, oh.
What made you, how did that come about? How did you find roller derby?
Okay. So when it first came to the Fox Cities back in like 2008 or something, I was so excited, but I was like pregnant out to here with my first kid. And then since it was my first kid, I was like, oh, I'll just go do it after. I don't do nothing after I was being a mom. I didn't know what I was in for. Sure thought I did though. And then just, it was just kind of a thing in the community that I knew was there. And then the timing was never right. But then the timing was right when the timing was right. And what was really great about it is like at the time, because I come from a little bit of a feisty background. Had a little bit of an anger problem back in the day.
You?
Yeah. But, I had, and that was always all about like me protecting myself, right? Like all that trauma stuff, because of a lot of the physical abuses. I would enter a room and be like sizing up the room by like who I thought I could handle and who I couldn't. If it was somebody I didn't think I could handle, I'd try to be their friend.
Strategy,
right?
It's a good strategy.
But I had done a lot of healing. I didn't need that anymore. I didn't feel the impulses to want to hurt somebody else or the fear that somebody was going to hurt me first. Like I had done a lot of work. I didn't feel that. And then it had been so long that I like started finding myself like kind of fearful to go out or whatever. As I was like, I don't even know if I can handle myself anymore. And then I found roller derby and I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm good. Yeah. I absolutely love it. It looks like a group of women knocking each other down, but I promise you it's women building each other up. It's the closest thing to actual loving, tough love. And anybody who wants to try it, we always want more people. And we are mostly teachers. Like there's mostly teachers on our league.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We literally have a rocket scientist on our league. She's our current bench coach. She's Professor Lawrence. But before she became our bench coach, she was our highest scoring jammer at the age of 55. So I don't want to hear no excuses.
Wow.
I ain't got time. I'm too old. No.
None of that.
No, none of that. And like my first season, because I always had wheels on my feet, skateboarding, BMX, all kinds of stuff, roller skating. I think I started the first time I remember being 4 and trying roller skating, and it was really, really hard. But by the end of it, like I got it and I was like, I'm so cool. I am the coolest ever. I just remember feeling like so awesome. And then, the jam skating stuff in the 90s when I could get away, when I wasn't in trouble. So I starting out, I hadn't done any like hitting or anything like that, but I was pretty good on skates. And there was another person who came, who just became one of my absolute greatest friends. And I'm so sad she had to move to Minnesota, but she couldn't even stand on the skates. And she came in on the first season, and they just taught her how to fall. They just taught her how to fall the entire time. And because of the way that we build each other up, we ended up starting our first game was at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know we look scary and we do that on purpose, but we're just trying to intimidate the other team. But it's really not. It's like some of the most sweetest, most supportive people. And it really is a place for everybody. And I like roller derby because it is one of the few sports that nobody like separates the teams by gender. I can tell you, I could give you a list of names of dudes that could tell you that their testosterone was no advantage against our team. So
is that right?
It is right. Yeah. Because there's men's roller derby too, and they don't have as many teams. So we have to play together if they want to have games or have a season. So
you got to play them.
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic.
It is.
So,
yeah.
I actually feel for him because I feel like there's probably a little extra effort put in, a little more oomph on that slam.
Sometimes.
Oh, see. Gosh, listeners, let me just say the smile says, yeah, it's true.
I may have had some coaches that I'm remembering when I'm playing against the guys. Yeah.
That's fair. That is fair. Okay. When's the next game? Or when's the next bout? And how do you find it? How do we come see it?
So it's March 11th, this coming Saturday. It's going to be at the Oshkosh Arena. We love that there. And you can get tickets at the door, or you can find them online at foxcitiesrollerderby.com, I believe is the correct. Oh boy, Secretary of State's going to be really upset with me if I got that part wrong. Oh, and that's the best part, is getting a name. Some of them are, and if anybody joins and they're having trouble with that, like I have a whole list of them. I think they're great. It's my favorite part of roller derby.
Of getting your roller derby name?
Yeah.
What's your roller derby name?
Mine is Siren, and I know a lot of people think that it's had got something to do with mermaids, but it's actually because I'm really loud.
Bruh. I love it. Okay. Roller derby. I'm in.
Awesome.
I need to come see one. And I've always been curious
11th.
about it. March 11th. Okay, cool. My what in the world is going on with is what in the world is going on with John Jones, UFC heavyweight, winning the championship on his first bout back after not competing for 3 years. That is amazing to me.
I mean, some people just got it,
And moved up a weight class. So he was light heavyweight and no one ever beat him. And then he stepped away and he's been troubled with some stuff, but he never got defeated. Gave his belt up because he was going to compete at heavyweight, and he took several years to put on the weight the right way. He didn't just jump up. And now, last night was the first bout of him back after 3 years. And usually, they talk about there's ring rust and that kind of thing. and he choked him out in the first 2 minutes of the first round. And
Jeez.
This is heavyweight. So like, that's crazy. And like, I like UFC. Like, I'm not some diehard UFC person, but for certain names, it's kind of like boxing. Like, I would never watch boxing unless there were certain people like,
Oh, no boxing? Really? Because I like boxing.
well, I used to like boxing during the Tyson years.
Okay.
Right. But I will say this. I loved boxing during the Tyson years. I also hated boxing because Tyson cost me lots of money because and this is no lie. There was one time me and my wife, we got the Tyson fight, right? It was a pay-per-view. We paid. We had all these people. We invited a ton of people over our house, and our house isn't a big house, but we probably packed in at least like 20, 30, 40 people in our house, right? To watch the Tyson fight. I get up right there, introducing Tyson, whatever. I run to the kitchen to like grab like a quick a plate of like snacks, right? I come back, it's over.
You missed it.
I missed it.
You missed the whole thing.
Missed the whole thing because Tyson knocked him out in like the first 30 seconds.
Oh, jeez.
And my soul hurt. And here's another thing. When you throw a big fight party like that and the person knocks the person out in like the first, it literally takes all the energy out because everybody was so
like, okay, well, let me look at the time.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna be going now. And it's like, oh my God, we just made all this food, and I get it. It was Tyson, but I was planning for at least 2 rounds, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And so
I can't even think about going any rounds with Tyson that make me scared.
Bruh. Facts. Just facts. Yeah, no.
I make him my friend though.
Oh, that's right. That is, and I'm gonna have to agree with you. And you know what? Let's be honest. Mike seems like he'd be a really cool person to have as your friend. I'd kick it with Mike.
Maybe, I don't know. He might be good at. He's not real great with women though.
Fair.
So.
I'm fair. That's fair. I can't touch that one.
Yeah,
That's
you
fair.
could probably be his friend. I'll just leave that there.
Yeah. Fair. All right. So we're going to jump into the next segment. The next segment is word association. This is where I give you a word and you tell us what comes to mind. And we always start off with our favorite word, the unifying word, food.
More.
Just more.
More. Yeah. I am a foodie. I'm just about every restaurant I go to, I find the thing that I like. So I know what I'm ordering every time because nothing like rubs me the wrong way more than when I just paid for something that I don't like. And I'm like, this isn't as good as it could be.
Bruh. Facts. I am that same way. Like it hurts my feelings. Like
right.
to go somewhere and it's not cheap.
It's not. Nothing is cheap.
So if I'm spending, somewhere between $15 to $30 on a plate, and then I get it, and it's not.
Yep.
My soul hurts because I'm thinking, right, and I don't want to. I blame myself because I'm thinking I should have just got what I
not on you. You got to be more gentle with yourself, man. Yeah, it's not on you.
Well, I say that because I do exactly what you do. I find my go-tos and I get my go-tos, but every once in a while you feel just a little experimental and you're like, okay, this place has never served me anything bad and I'm going to try something new today. And here's the special. They got a special on the chalkboard. And let me try that. Let me try some of that. And then I try it and I'm
then
like,
it's a disappointment.
Right.
You want to write them like a report card and send it to their mom.
What it really makes me want to do is go and order what I really should have ordered in the first place, but then I'm too cheap to to actually spend the money on that other plate. That's just where I'm at. I just suffer through it.
Yeah, I do. One of my favorite dishes ever is Thai green curry. Got to give a shout out to Basil's and Appleton on that one. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, and fried calamari. And I'm not talking like the fish sticks kind, like the real. I know I'm eating an octopus and people get freaked out by that. I think it's kind of cool. It makes me think of like all the sci-fi foods in all the movies. Like I'm eating an alien. It's fun and weird. I know. But yeah, food, more of it. That's the other thing is like, especially when I order something that I'm like, this is a little treat for me because I've behaved myself. And I've been eating my veggies and my fruits and my proteins and, you know, like cutting out all the sugars and stuff that I know are not good for me and my heart health and all that. But I'm going to have this little treat, and then it's not a treat at all. I get resentful. It's personal.
It's personal.
It's like they did it on purpose.
I like you.
Probably not.
Probably not. But you know, the universe does play tricks on us every once in a while.
It does. It does. Yeah, there's nothing worse than that.
Cocktail or beer?
No thanks.
All right. What is our favorite beverage? What do we like to do?
Well, I am a friend of a lot of local coffee shops, so they're really gonna not like me for this. But my favorite is the Jade Citrus Mint Tea that Starbucks has. No honey, no nothing in it. It's just the plain stuff. Although Brewed Awakenings does have a pretty good green tea too. And they used to have a passion fruit green tea that was my absolute favorite, but they got rid of it, man.
Yeah?
They got rid of it. I don't know why, but it was my favorite.
I'm a big tea drinker.
Yeah. I can't do coffee, man. It gets to my stomach and the jitters.
I'm at that point in life where the jitters. I can't do coffee because that caffeine hits different than tea caffeine. To me, tea caffeine's really clean. And so I still get the perk of caffeine, but it's not as harsh as coffee caffeine, which makes me literally have shaky hands.
That, and look, I was in the 12-step recovery community for 17 years. I have tried to like coffee. I have tried really hard. I just don't like it.
Yep.
I just don't like it. And the amount of sugar and cream I have to put in it, I might as well get a soda.
Well, then it's not coffee.
Right. It's not.
It's
not
coffee then. That's cocoa.
Exactly.
It's cocoa.
It is. My husband, though, is huge coffee drinker, and he's like snobberific about it.
Oh, I like those people too, though.
Yeah. And he, like, almost every vacation that we've gone on, in some way centers around seeing a coffee farm or getting the best coffee in the area, or like it centers around that. Yeah.
I understand it. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it feels weird until you figure out what you like. But once you figure out what you like, there's nothing that makes me smile more than to walk into Starbucks and be like, can I get a white grande mocha with a triple shot, no whip? And I am bougie about it, and I enjoy it.
That's too many things for me to remember. Oh. I can't even remember what they call the different sizes at Starbucks, and I just kind of refuse to do that. I'm like, it's 20 ounces. That's 20 ounces everywhere. We're not, no new coffee dialects. This is what I can remember. I want 20 ounces. That's what I want.
There's nothing. If I can do the grande or the venti, I'm all about it. I'm in. When I'm in there, I'm going to be amongst the other Starbucks people. Even though I do like, I actually don't do Starbucks that much. I do a lot of small coffee shops now too. Well, you know. Yeah. Up and down College Ave.
Yeah. I also really like New Moon. Oh. They have a dill wrap that's really good. Man, now I'm hungry. I might be going there after this if they're open.
I don't know. I don't know if they're open on Sundays. We'll check that out. Concert.
Oh, so my most fun concert that I've just been to recently was in Chicago, and it was to see Flogging Molly and the Interrupters. Two of my favorite bands, man. And I just, like, especially the album Fight the Good Fight by the Interrupters just really speaks to me. Yeah. And I was so, like, I almost got teary-eyed at the last bout when our introduction song, my team also picked that at the last roller derby bout to be their introduction song, which is Fight Like a Title Holder. And like that song and that team have gotten me through some really, really tough times. And it was really cool. It meant a lot to me.
There you go. All right.
Oh, but the one other band that I saw years ago that it's like still just sticks in my mind was El Nino and Soulfly. Yeah.
Where'd you see them?
That was in Milwaukee I think it was the Eagles Ballroom.
Oh, I haven't been to the Eagles in ages.
I know, right? It was in the before times, so.
Are we saying pre-COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way pre-COVID.
Right. Fair. It is funny because that is how I decipher time now. Pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Mm-hmm. And that Thanos snap in between when people are like, it's been 3 years since we saw each other. Wait, has it? Oh my God. Yeah, it has.
Yeah, no, it's really, we're at that point. Like, and that's why it matters, because you do have to think about it. Like, and I was just having this conversation with someone earlier this week, and I was like, 2020 was when we all got sent home, and that's been 3 years.
I know. It's still wild to me.
Right. And I mean, literally, that was 2020 March.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's legit 3 years.
I'm also kind of like, it's 2023. Where's my flying car? Like, we're behind on that.
I've got an episode on that.
Oh, sweet. Really?
Listen to the episode from Dick Kempinski from EAA. He talks about flying cars.
Well, now I'm scared, because then I would have to actually fly one. If it's called out. Darn it.
See, you just thought.
I just thought I could complain about something and get away with it. Yeah.
Yeah, no. The Kosh, we talk about everything.
Oh, man.
Shop local.
Satori Imports is always fun to like go in there and look around at what they have. I hadn't been there for
I haven't been there in a long time.
I know. Gosh, I'm drawing blanks right now, and I know that there's places that I do purposefully do. Well, do rummage sales count?
Oh my, that is the ultimate shop local. I am a rummageaholic.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah,
I am. I am such a miser when it comes to like buying furniture or like picture frames or something like that. And then, there's a whole environmental factor with it too. But then, and also with my kids' clothes, because there's 4 of them and they just grow so fast, and then they beat the crap out of them and rip them up and stain them. I'm not going to buy brand new stuff unless there's like a special occasion or it's the beginning of the school year. Right. So, but what changed my whole perspective on yard sales and rummage sales and thrift stores too was my first break room experience. Like there's like the breaking point in Appleton, and you just get to come in and you just get to break stuff. You just get to smash stuff. Like as a juvenile, I used to do that anyway, except for now it's a business model.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm not getting any fines anymore.
Right.
You just pay the $50 and they let you bring your own stuff in too. So then I was like, now there's this whole world of like, oh, I really want to smash that. So I had to bring it to the break room.
Oh my God. And so you go to like the thrift store, buy it, and then you're like, and then I'm going to smash that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, they got all kinds of stuff there, and they take junk and they'll come and pick it up too. So if you have something like an old flat screen, not tube TVs, they can't take those, but like old doors or chairs or toaster oven or radio or something like that, they'll come and get it. So
that is so fantastic on so many levels. I don't know. I'm fascinated by break rooms, but I'm also a little scared. Like, I'm not sure if I'm the man to go in there and just start.
They got a rage paint room too, so you don't have to like smash things. You can go in there and like whip paint at the wall and stuff too.
Well, no, I would just think I might like it a little too much, and it might become part of the monthly budget.
I mean, it has for me. So.
So, okay, I like that, and I do love a good rummage sale, and rummage season is around the corner here. I'm getting pretty excited about it. Mm-hmm. Like, we're the type of rummagers, and we did this for a number of years, that would go literally to every rummage sale in the city of Oshkosh. Every single one.
When they have it all listed, and
right.
then you plan out your route.
Yeah.
You make sure you got cash.
Yeah. And
you're going to find the ones where you can haggle. Yep.
Oh, I don't like rummage sale haggling.
No?
Yeah.
Come on.
It just depends. It depends because there are certain, here's the key to me. There's 2 types of rummage sales. Mm-hmm. There's the rummage sale where the person's trying to make money. Mm-hmm. Those I haggle at because sometimes they're charging more than it costs at Target to buy the item.
Right.
Or they bought the item from a really expensive place. And so what they're charging, they're thinking they're giving a discount, but like you could go to Walmart and buy it for that. Right.
Yeah.
The other type of rummage sale, which is my favorite rummage sale, which is the person who's like, this needs to get out of my house.
Yes. Yeah.
This needs to get out of my house. And then the favorite rummage sale of all rummage sales is the mom whose kids went to college and they left like all their video game stuff and all that stuff. And they're like, that is not your room anymore. This,
get it out.
If you don't come and get it, I'm putting it in the rummage sale. And they do. And it's dirt cheap. And I'm looking at wonderful collectible things of video games, and they're just like, yeah. And if you want more, there's some more in it. Just take the box.
Yes.
Just take the box.
Yeah.
Give me $5 for the box. For real? Okay.
See, okay, so I also have this problem, like everywhere I go, like I meet somebody and I'm like, hey, how you going? How's it going? And then like by the end of it, I'm like, well, good luck on your healing journey. Hopefully your mom pulls through. Like people just tend to kind of dump wherever I go. And I end up finding out that when we go to rummage sales, I end up finding out like the story behind the whole thing.
Oh.
And then a lot of times they want to charge for the emotional attachment to it.
Right.
And I'm like, I feel you, but
nope.
My pocketbook doesn't.
Correct.
I will sit here and listen to you though in exchange. Does that work? No. And then I don't know. Sometimes when you do that, they're just like, you know what, just for you. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's not what I meant to do, but thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I'm always so very careful about like, I don't even know how it happens. I don't even know how it happens, but yeah, I'm really careful about like starting to interact with somebody I don't know at all because I don't know what it is. But yeah, I end up getting their whole life story and all the things that they're struggling with, and I can't help myself but to be like, oh, I'm really so sorry to hear you're going through that. Like, and doing the whole thing of just being a support because that's what I do.
Right.
That actually just happened. I just went on vacation. It happened with my Uber driver too.
What?
Bruh.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm going to have a quick counseling session with my Uber driver. I think I'm trying to be like, hey, can we, Well,
it always happens though whenever they're like, because, people ask questions like, what do you do? And you can say like, oh, yeah, I work for the city. Oh, yeah, that's cool. But as soon as I'm like, well, we do things around addiction and policy and support. And then boom, everybody just... Everybody
unloads.
Everybody knows somebody, or everybody's been through that, or they work in the same field as this driver did for 35 years. And yeah, then it just ends up being a whole session.
I could see that. And actually, I don't know. That's kind of cool too, though. Like, I don't
mind. Cool. But like, so just so you know, if I ever like, I'm shutting off my phone, it's because I need to recoup. I'm really, really shutting it off.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Justice.
Oh boy. There's a whole lot of words that come to mind with that. Broken, I guess, would be my first response to that. There's a reason that we don't call it a criminal justice system anymore. It's a criminal legal system. Because it always seems like the ones who should be held accountable don't get held accountable, and the ones who didn't do. And then, gosh, there's so many intersections to talk about when you talk about that word justice. That's like a whole can of worms. I mean, we're talking about, you can't talk about that without talking about sexism, misogyny, homophobia, racial inequity. There's so many things.
Bruh.
Facts.
With that. I mean, even just so in my particular lane of, family recovery and dealing with child welfare, in the state of Wisconsin, according to our last census, we are 83% white and only 6% black. And throughout the state of Wisconsin and the demographics of kids that are removed, only 44% of kids are white and 36% of kids removed are black. So there's, I guess the first word I think of when I think of justice is injustice. And I've had to kind of give up justice being a marker of success, because if I measure my success on seeing justice being had, I'm going to get defeated real quick. and I'm going to get worn out and I'm going to quit. And the system is designed to wear you out and make you quit. And I'm a fighter, so I'm not going anywhere. You know, I'll keep riding the waves and being the support and holding up people who are doing really, really good work and hold space for them too. 'Cause our justice workers need support too.
Facts.
Self-care too, and in a place to fall apart too. So
Community.
complicated. Community is necessary. It's necessary for healing. You know, personally, that was always a word that I didn't want anything to do with for a lot of years. Because community was never exactly a very safe place for me. And communities would tend to decide things about me without me, and it never really turned out very well for me. And they didn't even know, you know, basically that I exist. And I didn't even realize, and then the group of people that I had as a community would have never called themselves a community either, because we were all the outcasts and the black sheep, right? But it was a community. So it's been complex for me. So here's one thing. I know sometimes I like push against 12-step ideas because there's, you know, that's one pathway of recovery that does work for some people, but it doesn't work for a whole lot more. But one thing that I did learn from doing service work for all those years while I was still a part of the 12-step community was do not show up and complain about a problem unless you are ready to roll up your sleeves.
Facts.
Bruh.
And that is something that I still find really, really valuable. And most of the time I won't speak on anything unless I either have a solution in mind or I am willing to put energy into something. But through doing this work, I have found that there are a lot of things that affect the work that I do. And I don't necessarily know what the solution is to those things, but it still needs to be talked about, because if I don't bring it up, maybe it's the person that will end up having the solution never thinks of it, right? But it's just bringing it up in a way that is not, you know, telling somebody else that they're not doing enough. Because I think everybody, I don't care what the field is, I don't care if you're a waitress, you're being told you're not doing enough. And nobody needs that. Nobody needs that.
Okay. You ready for your next segment?
Yes.
Next segment is Kosh Hidden Gems. This is your opportunity to share some hidden gem. It could be something everybody knows, and maybe they don't know a little piece of it. And it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the Kosh. It can be the Fox Cities. What's your hidden gem?
Jexi's. Definitely Jexi's restaurant. It's in Kaukauna now. It was a little hole in the wall, like down the street from my house. And we used to love going there for Sunday brunch. Remember how we talked about, like, I don't want to try something new because it might not be what I like. I have tried everything on their menu. Everything is great.
Bruh.
What?
Every time. There's not been anything. And they do everything. They do everything from like breakfast to Italian food and fajitas. And it's really, really good. And it's a local family owned business too. So yeah, Jexi's in Kaukauna. That's I almost didn't say it because I kind of just wanted to keep it for myself.
Don't be like that. Don't be like that.
Only with really special things though. So, but yeah, no, you got to go and support them so that they can still be there, because I can't eat all of their food to support their business model. But yeah, definitely Jexi in Kaukauna.
Is it? I want to make sure I'm hearing it right. Wait, how do you spell it?
So I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, because it's a Hispanic family that owns it.
Okay.
So I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's Jexi, and I only slightly know my Spanish alphabet phonetics, and I tried pronouncing it with that, and I probably also did it wrong then too. But yeah, Jexi. Go eat their food. It's amazing.
Okay, got it. What's the Kosh need?
More collaboration, I think.
What do you mean?
So there's a lot of resources for a lot of people at many different intersections. And since, addiction doesn't discriminate, like you end up learning a lot about a lot of different places and social levels and legislative levels, right down to the practices and the people and the community, right? And sometimes there is a competitive mindset, like we're going to have to compete for people to serve. But what every single one of those people will tell you is that they do not have enough as an organization to meet the needs, the demand of the community of the support, right?
Right. There's never enough money. There's never enough volunteers. There's just never,
right. Yeah. There's never enough money. There's never enough staff. There's never enough training. But then when something new comes along, we're like, no, not you, not that. And rather than, kind of collaborate on that. Sometimes they do. I know that, Apricity became Apricity because of the collaboration of a few different organizations. But even within county systems and state systems, and then once you go real high up to the federal systems, and the competition gets even more ridiculous. I'm kind of look, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If we ever get to the point where there are so few people afflicted by poverty or addiction, or racial inequity that led to addiction or led to poverty, if we ever run out of people so that there's not enough to serve with all of these organizations, y'all can have it. You can have it. I'll go do landscaping. I will dig in the dirt and plant pretty flowers. I have no need to do this. But I do see that the community needs it, and I have the connections, and I have the resources, and I have the ability to do something. And I don't think I could live with myself if I, knowing those things, and then I just didn't. I don't think I could do that, at least not at this point in my life. So I just think we could do a lot more collaboration, a lot more. I mean, because especially, with certain organizations that have the largest amount of money that's dumped into them, or they have a lot of the resources, they're going to end up getting referrals from other organizations anyway. So that really benefits everybody. Especially the people that we're serving, the territorial stuff. And I mean, honestly, people who are overdosing and dying on their living room floors don't care if we're friends or not. And that's really what it comes down to, is making sure, one, that people have the option, two, that they have a pathway that works for them, because dead people and ostracized people don't recover, period. They just don't.
Right.
So making sure that we have those measures in place, and then somewhere to send them afterwards, awesome. We do something on the Good Samaritan law so that there's not a consequence if somebody is calling 911 over an overdose, right? That they can do that. That's awesome. Great. We saved a life. Now what? What do they do now? It's not you have, I mean, for some people, sure, an overdose is a wake up, and they're able to go through their process the way they need to go through it, whether it's through harm reduction means or, medicated assisted treatment, or maybe they really want to just go through that horrific detox and come out on the other side, that way. Or maybe they need more mental health and substance use. There's a lot of barriers between mental health and the substance use lanes. But there is so much overlap. And sometimes there's a belief that only mental health is the reason that people are using in the first place, or they're having mental health issues because they're using.
Right. That's true.
Both are true. Both are true. Neither are an ultimate truth, though. Right? There's a lot of overlap, and people should have their mental health medications available to them and still be able to get addiction recovery support and assistance or in treatment if that's the route that they want to go. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way, much to the detriment of the people who are just trying to get help and trying to get out of the spot that none of us want them to be in anyway.
That makes sense. And it sounds complex.
It is. It is really complex. I mean, because then, you're talking about bureaucratic systems and you're talking about systems that were designed to keep certain people from getting access to certain things. And even the ones who can get access don't get the greatest access. And then even the people within the systems that want to make those changes can't because of the structure that is in place. You always have to go up higher. You always have to go up higher, which, when I have a goal in mind, I get pretty singular minded. So if I have to go all the way to the top to pull it back down, that's what I do. One of the examples of that was Act 122 in Wisconsin. And again, this was a situation where, one, I think certified peer specialists were being given a lot of misinformation. And at the same time, I think there were some people who were taking the recovery coach name and not using it appropriately, and using it as a coaxing or a pushing, or pushing somebody towards a specific treatment or a specific pathway of recovery, which is what the certified peer specialists have a problem with. Which, hey, I agree with you. That's not how we should be treating people. We have years and years of evidence to show that doesn't work. But Act 122 was passed so that recovery coaches can be Medicaid reimbursable, because much of the time the people that need, our help and services, they don't have any money. They don't have any insurance.
Right.
And as much as I, love what I do, my mortgage isn't paid on feel goods. So, I still need to do, I still need to make a salary at least. And that does make it more complicated. And when that was passed, it bumped up against a whole bunch of Medicaid rules. And then even the individuals who are at the single state authority level really want to see this happen. They want to be able to see, we need both. We need more of both, both certified peer specialists and recovery coaches. But to make it happen, they had to, deal with CMS, who is beholden to nobody, and it's federal. So it's not an elected position. So it's not like you can apply any pressure or anything like that. So it was something that kind of held things up for a while. But I'm really glad to say that I have seen some really good efforts there in finding a way to be really creative with doing that. The Wisconsin way, because, even though other states have done it and there's the model out there to do it, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're going to reinvent the wheel because we're Wisconsin. So, but I'm glad to see that moving at least. So having the different collaboration really does help. And I like my role the most because I get to see things both from the micro and the macro view. I get to see what people really think, because a lot of times there's a divide and there becomes this paranoia that, we kind of make up a boogeyman in our minds of either who's on the street using or who's, up there making all of these decisions about laws and whatnot. Thanks. And so being in the position that I'm in, I have the privilege of being able to see the people across the table who are just humans, just all trying to figure out what they're doing, and where they are in life, and that they genuinely do want to help. And sometimes people genuinely want to help and they got no idea, man. They think they do. Yeah. But I know that if I come in there and I'm, telling them how wrong they're doing things, you tend to get shut out. But, when I take a minute to like really listen to like what their intention is at least, and then having that perspective of saying like, okay, I hear you, but this is how it plays out on the street. I find that to be really effective. And especially when I stepped in, because I've been in one form or another doing some kind of peer work for about the last 20 years. And for about the last 5, I have focused specifically on families involved in child welfare and that whole thing. Because it's a very different system. And the people that are involved in it genuinely want to help. They genuinely believe that they're helping. And sometimes that's dangerous when they won't hear something else. And I had even been almost convinced that things had changed since I had been through it. And some faces changed and some attitudes have changed, and having more information definitely changed. But seeing the human experience of what their bodies are going through is no different than what I went through it. Like we can call it trauma-informed care. We can call it partnering with families, which you can't really call it with partnering with families anyway, because there's an inherent power dynamic. That's not a partner. But even in situations where removal is absolutely necessary, which are very rare occasions that I would agree that is necessary, it doesn't that physical feeling that they're having in their body is reacting as though their child is being kidnapped and held for ransom, even if and that child is having that experience too.
Right.
When I talk to people a lot, I'm like, well, if you're walking down the street and a van pulls up and they grab your kid and they throw them in there, and you're not going to look at the plates and go, oh, they're government plates. It's fine. This is going to be fine. And the kid's going to be like, oh, these are people from the government. Yeah. Okay. I'm totally safe. I'm way better off than I was with my mom a minute ago. Yeah. That's not how they're going to react. Right.
Right.
No.
Right. I literally was envisioning that when you said it, and I was just like, yeah. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of things. Like there's a lot of things that people don't know. Like people don't know that just because child welfare didn't remove a child, it doesn't mean that they're doing nothing. They're not doing anything. They know, they have the benefit of knowing, and that the being removed is the trauma that the kids remember. They know that going into foster care increases their rates of using drugs and alcohol by 63%. They know that after a 10-year study on our own systems, 93% of kids that are in juvenile justice had 1 or more foster placements. They know that this is not what's best for kids, and they don't want to pull that trigger unless it is absolutely necessary. Because while we may disagree on some practices and we may disagree on some policies, and we come from different backgrounds of experience with it, I do believe that the people who are in child welfare genuinely want to help. We just need to have better discussions about what that means.
Right. I could see that.
Yeah.
Because there's not a one size fits all.
Right. And to the people who are involved with child welfare, like they don't care. And I don't think they should have to care that their social worker genuinely wants to help, right? Like they're in this disempowered situation. They don't have, the benefit of being self-directed at that point. And a lot of times it's almost like a language barrier between, the professionals and the people who don't come from that world.
Right.
So having somebody there that can kind of translate, if you will, just that better communication, brings better collaboration to work towards a goal that we all want, which is a better future for our kids. Everybody wants that.
Facts.
So.
Okay. I think we're going to take a commercial break.
Did you know there are children in the Fox Valley in need of hearing aids, but their parents struggle to provide them because of lack of insurance or high copays? I am Juliette Sturkins, audiologist and board member of Here in the Fox Cities, and proud that this small local nonprofit organization has helped fund hearing aids for some 30 kids. Your donation would help more children here. Visit hereinthefoxcities.org to learn more and to see their smiles. Every child deserves to hear.
All right, we're back. And our next segment is, and this is a new segment we've been testing out now, story time. And so this is an opportunity to share a memorable narrative with us. It could be more than one if you like.
I got a couple.
Oh.
Especially on the topics that we're touching on here in the world that I work in. So, back to that point of struggling when being dumped on your head as a foster kid, and I had gotten an apartment. I had finally gotten an apartment, and I had gotten a job at Lutheran Social Services doing caretaking for CBRF, third shift though, which it wasn't too bad. I've always been a night person. It only got rough when, you don't see the sun for a few weeks in the end of the year. But I did get to see the Northern Lights a lot, which I thought was super cool. But I remember struggling really hard to be able to keep this job, and that I was like never living up to my boss's expectations. And the communication wasn't great between coworkers, but I was like hanging on because I needed this paycheck, and I just really wanted to prove to myself that I could like keep my phone on. And I was trying to juggle the bills so that I could pay off fines to get my driver's license reinstated, because I was driving to work without a driver's license, and I had a
What?
I had a big old, I had to get there, I had a big old 1981 Pontiac Grand Prix.
Oh, I remember those.
Her name was Ellie. And actually I bought that car because 1981, I think, was one of the last years that the engine was still carbureted. So I knew how to work on it myself if it broke, because a lot of the newer cars with all the computerized stuff, I didn't know any of that stuff. So I was like trying to keep costs down by putting the labor in myself, although eventually the repairs ended up outweighing the value that I couldn't even put the time in. It did break down a lot, and then I would have to ride the bus, and I could only, a lot of times I would need to rely on the Salvation Army food bank to eat. And I can remember, I know this is going to make some people cringe, but I can remember sometimes like my dinner was a can of sauerkraut. And I was walking home from the bus stop, which wasn't very far, with all of my paper bags. And I was kind of feeling sorry for myself because it had been a rough week and I hadn't slept. And I was like, oh my gosh, everybody keeps telling me if I do all the right things, like things are going to get easier. Like, when is it going to get easier? Like, when is it going to get right? When am I going to not feel like I'm struggling all the time? Right. And it was mostly canned food, so it was heavy. And I'm walking, and the one bag just like rips right open. And I'm by myself on the street, and I just say out loud, I'm like, I'm a star in a Lifetime movie. I'm in a Lifetime movie. That's what this is right now. And I don't even remember how I got all of the rest of the cans back up to my house, but it was just, so I remember that being like a pinnacle of struggle, just to keep the status quo. And honestly, it wasn't that long after that I ended up losing that job and then losing that apartment. It was back to the homelessness, and I had to start all over again. I ended up in a relationship with a guy who was domestically abusive out of desperation. That was such a struggle period of time in my life, and I really blamed myself for it. So then, like, fast forward to a year and a half later, I had finally gotten signed up to go back to school. So I was 22, and I was like, okay, I ran far and fast from all of anything that even smells like an institution. But once again, I'm going, might need to do something with my life here, because I sure can't seem to hack it in the service industry here. And then the week before I was supposed to start classes, I had a breakup with somebody who I actually cared a lot about, and who we had gotten an apartment together too. So I was gonna end up being homeless for a little bit, and I remember thinking, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? Because, I would always fall apart. I'm like, how am I gonna do this? I'm supposed to go to school, and my heart is broken, and I'm gonna have to find out how am I gonna do this? And I can't tell you what was different, but I just heard this voice in my head that said, no, F that. No, you worked really hard for this. You're going to go do this, and you're going to do it well. And I did. And having that, I don't know why. I mean, I walked 20 minutes in each direction to get to school with all my books. I walked to my job at Subway that I went and got.
Nice.
Most fun job I've ever had, by the way, at Subway. I was so I was not going to work at fast food. Most fun job I ever had. And then, once I was able to hold my own apartment for a year by myself. And, I spent a lot of time as a teenager incarcerated. So I was out and I was getting involved in ballroom dancing. I was competing. I was doing a apprenticeship for tattooing. Which ended up bringing me a little bit of extra cash on the side too. Just having that time to show me that I could I could be a reliable person for me, because at this point, nobody else was going to be. That was really amazing. And that was part of what sent me, because I wasn't going to do none of this. By the way, I was going for qualitative and quantitative research for abnormal psychology. I wanted to do profiling. I didn't want to do none of this peopling thing or networking, being part of a community thing, or talking to people in government. No,
not
thank
about
you.
any of that life. Huh?
No, I wanted nothing to do with any of that. I wasn't gonna have kids. I wasn't getting married. I was just gonna do that. And then my husband and I reconnected, and all that changed. But those are some pretty pivotal things, some pretty pivotal points in my life that I remember when I'm doing the work that I do.
I felt that. I felt that.
Aww.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing the story. And now it is time for topic of the week. I know, I love the introduction. It gets me kicked every time.
I'm like, oh shit, we're on CNN. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're gonna be okay.
Okay.
So, all right. So it's time for topic of the week, and the topic of the week is chosen by our guest. So, Patty, what is our topic of the week?
I'm talking about addiction policy.
Okay, addiction policy. Let's go.
Okay. So most of the time we treat addiction as a criminal disease. We legislate it that way. We sentence it that way, despite having mountains and mountains of evidence to show that what works when we really, really want to lower the use of drugs is we have to remove the market, which is a much bigger conversation. And when we treat it like a public health issue, worldwide, cross countries, cross social classes, races, when we treat it like a public health issue, that's really what diminishes the use of drugs. And that's a much bigger conversation. So I know that this might make me a little bit unpopular, but I'm all for the decriminalization of the use of drugs. So my reason for that is we would not criminalize any other medical condition. I mean, we have in the past. We definitely have. We used to criminalize Down syndrome. We criminalized, schizophrenia. The mental health community can go on and on and on about the way that they were treated as well. So I know a lot of people think about this as it was a choice, Even once, you got to the spot where you couldn't stop and you couldn't live any other way, that it was a choice to start in the first place. And you know what? That maybe was true at one time about maybe 50 or so years ago. But I can't. So like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years and I can't remember the last time somebody came across my desk that didn't have their doorway and their pathway into addiction through some kind of injury or surgery or having some kind of chronic pain that they were not getting their needs met on and were overprescribed. Somebody who was just on my caseload right now who ended up in the position that he was in. It all started because he broke his foot, and the rest was history from there. I don't think we've done a good enough job educating the public on just how much damage the Sackler family has done to communities all over the place. They were not honest about, and this is one of the reasons for the lawsuit in the first place, is they were not honest with care providers about how addictive their medicine was. They set up an entire system based on the pain rating of the patients within hospitals. So hospitals could be rated lower if they were not prescribing medications more. Doctors were receiving kickbacks for prescribing certain amounts from the pharmaceutical company. So this idea that, this addiction is a choice thing, this needs to go away. We can't keep blaming individuality or there's something wrong with the individual for this anymore, because this wasn't caused by individual anything. When we're talking about the opioid epidemic, this was something that was done systemically by people with a lot of money and power and influence. And it took a lot. It took a lot to get that even brought to the surface. So when we arrest people for using, there's a cycle that they end up getting trapped in, because now you have that on your record, and that keeps you from getting housing. It keeps you from getting jobs. And one of the requirements is to keep your employment. So there's very few jobs that you can go into. I mean, unless you want to work in this field, which is not for everybody. And I can tell you that there are a number of people in the recovery community, especially if we're talking about the organization, Young People in Recovery. As soon as you put that out there, as soon as you're known for that, everybody gets to know like your personal medical background. Ooh. Because now you've identified yourself as a person with a substance use disorder. And when you're working in the addiction field, you don't really get to get out. You don't really get to get out anywhere outside of that. It's very difficult. I mean, sure, there are a few that can have the social mobility in and out, but, resumes get picked over, you get passed over. And it feels really like, so one of the things about people who are in the recovery community, especially if there's a long history of trauma, and that's the reason for the use in the first place, is getting a lot of that affirmation and attention by sharing your story feels really good. And it feels great to get it off your chest. And it feels so good to be getting all of this affirmation and attention and really feeling that your life has changed and that you're cared about, especially to somebody who's a trauma survivor. Like, that's a big deal to know that there are people that care about you, and they, but what they don't realize then is that puts them in there forever.
I got stuck at a place, and so I was thinking about it. When you apply to other jobs and you've done work like this or are associated with work like that, do you think that other employers just have the assumption that because you work in the field that you have lived experience and you've had addiction issues, like when they're combing through? Do you think that happens? Do you think there's...
Oh, I know it does. Yeah. Okay. Especially a lot of time, because especially if you're talking about going into something like an emergency responder situation, when you're talking about being an EMT or a nurse, that's something that ends up getting talked about like at length. What was your role? And in ways, other other positions maybe wouldn't. And then, we're constantly told over and over and over and over again, you have to be honest, 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 you have to be honest. But there's a difference between, the being honest and then, having boundaries and realizing that maybe the person across from you is not a trustworthy person for you to be that open and transparent with.
Right. What are they doing with that information after you share it?
And is that hurting me to be that honest and that transparent, right? Even if we don't realize it, that's something that kind of comes a little bit later down the line in recovery. Because honestly, at that time, people are just so relieved to not be in the same kind of pain that they had been, to have like a reprieve, to have a community, to have people who, approve of them, will show up for them. And then a lot of times that's not things that they have. And that's the things that do work about the recovery community is when people show up, they really show up. And because there are people that know what it's like to have nobody. And then they know what it's like to at least have nobody in a moment, when they really, really needed somebody. So back to my original point of decriminalizing the use of drugs. With the amount of money that we spend on law enforcement and the costs of having inmates in our jails and in our prisons, if that money were rerouted into public health and rerouted into the resources that we already have to expand so they could for once have enough resources to serve the size of the need in the community, I think that's when we're really going to see the results that we want, because ultimately we want to see less people overdosing. We want to see fewer people having continued reoccurrence of use. We want to see fewer people suffering due to their mental health diagnoses or struggles. We want to be able to see people not only doing better as a community, but having that autonomy and that personal autonomy to say, this is what it looks like for me. And when somebody is arrested, that eliminates all personal autonomy, right? And I know that there are things like drug courts, and I'm split on drug courts, and I will explain why. So on one hand, drug courts are a lot better than where we were. There's a benefit to choosing to go through a drug court. You can, well, one, you don't go to prison. And
that's a pretty big benefit.
Yeah. And you can work to not have that drug charge on your record, which means, you have an opportunity to get somewhere, to find something that looks like recovery for that person. On the other hand, when you micromanage and control every area of somebody's life and you have the power to take away their freedom, of course it's going to look like it's successful. But I have the opportunity to sit down and talk with people when they're no longer involved with any of that, or when they didn't succeed in that, because some of the expectations are a lot higher than I think the people realize.
Yeah.
Because they know the resources are there, but they don't necessarily know the process to get access to that resource. So they don't really know what they're assigning.
Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes it's like, you've got to check in, do this, you need to do this, report this. And you're not thinking about like how much time that takes or where do you got to go to do that. And you're telling me I got to keep this job and I got to.
And what job is going to let you leave that much?
Right. And all of those things. And it's like, I've heard stories where it almost feels almost contradictory.
Yeah.
Like what you're asking on one side of it to get yourself up to speed. But now I'm going to give you all of these hurdles, which the hurdles are supposed to be like check-ins to kind of keep you on path. But sometimes they feel like they come across as legitimately more obstacles to keep you from being successful.
And what ends up happening is, remember how I talked about like every time that I would fail and everything that was really, really hard, like I would blame myself for. That's what I see over and over again. It's not, when everybody around you is telling you like, why can't you just do this? Like, this is just such a normal thing. There must be something wrong with you. Like you believe that because it seems like everybody else is experiencing this and they're going through it and they're just better at it than me. I must really suck, which is probably an inherent belief that they have about themselves in the first place. Or if they don't have it, if we're not coming from generational trauma and we're coming from somebody who, got caught up in addiction due to an injury or an illness, they already think that there's something wrong with them, that they couldn't kick it. Like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? And then that shame spiral comes, right? And again, remember, when we inflict pain on people who use substances as a response to pain, they're going to use more substances. And while I have to say that every time I see a big drug bust, where the substances fentanyl or meth are taken off the street, like, I do breathe like a sigh of relief. Like I do, I will admit that, but it's temporary. And I know that it's temporary because taking down that drug dealer just created an economic opportunity for somebody else to get out of poverty. And people will do anything to get out of poverty. Poverty is only romantic on TV. So I see the need for law enforcement, definitely. I'm not anti-law enforcement, but as a measure of treating addiction, it's like bloodletting somebody with schizophrenia. It's not effective and kind of nonsensical and harmful. And when we are sentencing people to things that like only certain people are able to come all the way through on, and other groups end up failing every time, we have to stop and go, wait, why is that? Why is that? What is our recidivism rate? And up to this point, recovery and addiction has just always been, and alcoholism, has kind of just always been considered a lost cause type situation. So the assumption is, well, what can you do? But when somebody with diabetes, for example, if they're not responding to a specific type of insulin, the response is, well, what are you going to do with those pancreases? They just don't want their pancreas to work. Like you have to want it bad enough. You have to do all the things. No, we don't do that. We change the insulin we give them. We change the treatment. We adapt them to what their needs are. Right. And we're not as willing to do that with people in recovery. It's still, the stigma is a lot better. It has just in my lifetime, stigma has gotten a lot better, but we still have a long, long way to go with this. Especially within law enforcement, especially within the medical care systems. Those are some of the most difficult communities to get empathy from when it comes to this. Not that there isn't some measure of it, but there's still this idea that, people can't live self-directed lives and figure out how to recover. We have to make them. And so part of what I do, like a big part of what I do is like I remove all of the barriers and the obstacles. Like I know all the ins and outs and the loopholes and the labyrinth maze of insurance and county systems and assessment systems and getting somebody into treatment, right? Because it's not as simple as just like opening up your phone book. That's right. I dated myself. And looking up the number and then giving them a call, it's not as easy as going on a website and sending an email. There's a lot of processes to be able to do that. And that stops a lot of people. And it's not necessarily that the providers don't want to provide, but they have to have their funding too in order to provide. Right. So that gives them some struggles too. And then being able to keep staff is a struggle everybody's having.
Facts.
So what I do a lot of times is I'm looking at their paperwork of what they're required to do. I like break down what all of these acronyms mean, and what the county or, what their social worker or what their probation officer are going to be looking for to see. And I try to help them get started on that, before their sentencing, before their disposition court hearing, before a CHIPS petition is even filed, so that, we can mitigate that amount of time where they're like taken completely out of their life, because those struggles of the system, those traps, once you're in the system, can contribute to somebody, diving further into their addiction. And if you just have somebody that's like, no, I get it. Here's what you got to do. You don't want to do that? Okay, cool. Let me know what you do want to do. And if we can find a thing. But like, for example, if somebody is, so in Appleton, if somebody wants to get, some like either methadone or Suboxone through the clinic up there, they are required to go to individual counseling once a week and group counseling once a week. And they have to do, I believe it's a minimum of 5 UAs. So they can make sure that they're not taking anything that's going to interact with the medications for safety, all of those reasons, right?
Right.
But then if you have a court order that is also requiring you to take these parenting classes on top of, 3 other, supervised UAs, which we could just have a whole podcast on like what that means, and what they're requiring of people to do and how much bodily autonomy, and then never, forget about, sexual assault trauma survivors who have to do this stuff. And then they're, treated as they're just being defiant. And so the worker or the probation officer doesn't think that they're asking that much. But they don't realize how much of their time is required to get access to the things that they need in order to check off the things on their list. And I don't think that that's intentional. I have come to learn that some of it has to do a lot with turnover, like social worker turnover, law enforcement turnover, and then not having any structured way of introducing new staff because they've got so many other things to learn, what the resources are in the community. So they end up having to like relearn that every time that they're there. So, and then they don't know all the steps. They're like, just go to this place, they'll help you. Yeah, well, they'll help you, but here's what you need to have. And if you don't have all of those things, then it creates another barrier, and you got to come back, and then it's another date, and then it's another day off of work, and you're supposed to keep your employment. Oh, right. Yeah. And if you're in drug court, well, then you're also supposed to be volunteering, but you have a drug charge on your record. So there's a lot of places that are not going to let you volunteer because you have a drug charge on your record. And if you don't volunteer, and then there's only certain places that will, and then they're full because everybody else is already there. And so then there's a waiting list, and then you don't end up getting to complete, drug court successfully. And then you need to be able to have reliable transportation to get there. And I can tell you from experience that Valley Transit is great, and I think we need to invest more in it, because it takes 2 hours, one direction, to get from Appleton to Oshkosh. Okay. So even if you're living on like, I don't know, what is that, Calumet Street in Appleton, that's just barely in Winnebago County, and you've got to get over here to the courthouse. Right. Or even just to the one in Neenah, that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time just to get the transit there. And yeah, so there's just a number of obstacles and barriers that people run into on the lowest levels that people who are very well intended higher up don't get to see every day, because they're handling a lot of other very important details too. And I also see how somebody can start as a social worker or police officer, and they see the problem and they want to make a change in the system. So they realize they got to go higher. So they go higher, and then they are like, well, I still can't make this change. And then they got to go higher still. And as they go higher and higher, right, with this intention, they move farther and farther away from the people and being able to have that contact, which is difficult, because I get it too, right? There are some reasons for that, especially if you're in a position where you have to be making some very difficult decisions of things that you don't want to do, or that, just human to human, regardless of the roles, people, it's a lot to ask them to do that. right? But so if you have somebody else that makes that decision for you and you have no choice but to go act that out, it makes it a little bit easier on like that person's mental health, because secondhand trauma is a thing. So as they move farther and farther away, you know, they don't get to see how that change plays out on the bottom.
No, there's usually a disconnect.
Yeah. So then they don't get to see if that is working fully structurally, and they don't get to, they, you know, and people put their whole heart into this stuff. So it's really difficult to say, hey, you were really well intended, but this was your impact and you're responsible for both. And that's one that people they don't like that one.
No, I do think that's a tough scenario because you see it in a bunch of institutions. I mean, same thing happens in education. The higher up you go in education, the less you interact with the student, and then you lose ground, and you know, or you might not even be truly interacting with the educators at that level anymore. You know, and I think that just happens in a lot of institutions.
It does, yeah.
And if you don't know what's going on the front line, it's really hard to fix it. Like,
it is
at the point of true interaction with who the constituents truly are.
Yeah. And then, you know, the people who are in the most vulnerable positions are the ones that end up paying for that.
Right.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like I said, if I measured my success by seeing justice had, I would have bowed out a long time ago.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about addiction policy?
I think we need to seriously reassess what that means. We tend to get stuck in our silos of this is this lane, this is this lane, this is this lane. And for certain things, that's necessary, especially when you're talking about like tax filings and grants and things like that. But we can't look at addiction as like a single issue, because it's not. You can't talk about addiction is a symptom of suffering. It's symptom of a sickness. And as a society, we're sick, man. You know, when you don't have access to basic things like healthcare, when you don't have access to housing, when you don't have access to decent food,
Facts.
You know, even when you don't have access to even human touch, like we need these basic things. And there's so many obstacles to all of those things for so many people, and that create pain, that cause pain. And addiction is a result of pain. I think we really need to change the way that we think about this, from tough love to what love really means.
Thank you. I felt that. Okay. It's the time of the show. We're going to start winding down. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kosh listeners, for giving us time, spending time with us, sharing your minds with us, listening to this conversation. We appreciate you. We're a work in progress. We're always trying to do better. So let us know how we're doing. Please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. It's really easy. You can email us at askthekosh@gmail.com. Once again, that is askthekosh@gmail.com. If you want to be a guest, if there's a topic you want us to talk about, if you want to have us do a shout out on your behalf, you can do that. We can do all of those things. Also, we do have a voicemail. So if you want a voicemail in that, you can do that too, and just leave us a message. Or if you would like to have like a shout out, birthday wish, whatever, on to the Kosh, we can do that too. You can reach us at 920-385-9298. Once again, that is 920-385-9298. And Kosh listeners, as you know, I do got a couple of requests for you. There's some things I need y'all to help us continue to improve and move up in ratings and such. Please make a little time if you listen to the show. Leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. But it also helps the distributors of podcasts know that people are actually listening and how they feel about it. So leave us a review, subscribe to the show, and share these episodes with your circle of people. I think we have some pretty powerful conversations that happen on here, and I'm sure we all know people who could benefit from that, like today's conversation, because I think we all know someone who's struggled with some type of addiction. And if we don't know them personally, we're probably 1 degree of separation from knowing someone, right? And it's usually not someone far away. It's family, close friends, and such, for whatever reason that they do have these issues. So thank you again. Now it is my favorite time of the show. It is shout out time. So this is where we get the shout outs. And Patty, who you got? You want to shout out?
Well, I got a shout out to my kids, Silhouette, Jackson, Kylawea, and Mahina. They're going to be really stoked to hear their voice or their names on a radio.
Oh, that's awesome.
For sure. And shout out to my emotional support human, my husband, Jexi Heffernan, who we've been through a lot, and he has helped hold me up to do the work that I do today. So, yeah, those are my shout outs for today.
Okay, awesome. All right, my shout outs, and usually I have a big long list, but I actually don't have that long of a list today, which is, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it is what it is. And my shout outs today are going to go to all my past guests here on the Kosh. We hit a milestone a couple episodes ago. We hit 75 episodes. I think that's really awesome. We're creeping our way towards 100 episodes sometime this year, which will be fantastic. And just the fact that people continue to want to come on here and have this conversation and get on this platform and share whatever it is that they're sharing with our community, to give them another voice, another perspective. I think we do a really good job on here of having a really diverse group of individuals on all sorts of professional and personal levels. And the conversation, if it's not anything, it's very authentic. And I think there's a lot to say for that. And we couldn't do that without these guests who make time to come in and sit down in the little studio, which is my daughter's old bedroom. And we do a little recording, and it's kind of fantastic. I want to send a shout out to Garrett, send a shout out to Fat Mama, and I want to send a shout out to the Parks and Rec Department in Appleton and facilities who had a hand in reconstructing my office, which they did this sweet job. And Timber's got a new remodeled office, and it was just amazing. They were so cool about it and ecstatic about it, and we giggled about it, and they let me make all these choices, and I kept telling them, I don't know what I want. Right? That's the worst, right? People actually ask you what you want, and you're like, I don't know. But
I wouldn't know. I usually, whenever anybody asks me that question, I usually know exactly what I want. In case you couldn't tell.
I couldn't tell. So I want to send a very special shout out to them also. Now, we got one thing left. We're at the end of the show. And Patty, this is the option. Okay. You got an A, B, and a C.
Okay.
So
I was always good at multiple choice.
See, that's why I made it multiple choice.
Okay.
Because you know what? I like multiple choice tests. I thought I was good at them.
If you don't know the answer, it's C every time.
Oh, then maybe it's going to be C this time.
I mean, don't listen to me, though. I graduated with a 1.99. Don't take any wisdom from me on tests.
So option A is to share some parting words of wisdom. Option B is, what would yourself today tell your 13-year-old self? And option C is what it is on most tests, all of the above. So which one would you like?
Oh boy. I guess we can do a little bit of all of the above. Like I said, the answer is C, right?
Yeah.
I think what I would tell my 13-year-old self is, no, you are actually right, and it is everybody else. Everybody else is crazy. It's not you. That's what I would tell her, because, man, that girl needed to hear that. And, oh, gosh, parting words of wisdom. Gee, I don't know, on the spot like that, I just have to say, when the zombie apocalypse comes, don't set any on fire. They just walk around setting things on fire then. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Love it. All right. What you think?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. The Kosh.